What do you do when you're introducing a new character? What you don't do is undermine their whole entrance. Welcome to my video on the last special of the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who, The Giggle. Now, I'm only going to be talking about one very specific element of this episode. I am going to be doing a different video about the toy maker and about antagonists in general, but this is focusing on the approach to Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor being introduced and the overall structuring of his introduction. Introducing a new character is no easy task, and the Doctor Who writers have an extra little challenge as they have to introduce new incarnations of the character every time. In this episode, we get the introduction of the 15th incarnation of the Doctor, played by Ncuti Gatwa. But this time, we have the introduction of a new piece of lore called Bi-Generation. And this means that Ncuti and David Tennant's Doctors are existing at the same time. Now, this idea would be okay if it didn't come off the back of the first female Doctor and give the impression that the studios or networks or both are just terrified of putting a black queer Doctor on screen after ratings dropped from the first female Doctor. In the show, when a new Doctor is introduced, it creates a new entering point for new viewers. Ncuti's Doctor, however, does not get this because his introduction is fully tied to David Tennant's 14th Doctor's storyline. There is no escaping it because he regenerates halfway through an episode of a special centered around David Tennant's Doctor. You cannot watch all of Ncuti's run without having to watch these three specials because they leave so many loose ends, and I'm hoping those loose ends get actually resolved. The one occasion that we got something similar to this was when Matt Smith's Doctor regenerated into Peter Capaldi's Doctor. And this only really qualifies because we had the same companion carrying over. This is kind of similar, but at the same time, Matt Smith's Doctor, all of his plot lines got tied up by the end of his run. He didn't have the Trenzalore stuff still lingering. His major storylines were all tied up, and Peter Capaldi could just go forward with his own storylines. Now, okay, let's talk about Bi-Generation. With this idea, it really undermines Ncuti's entrance as the Doctor and doesn't give him the same entrance as other Doctors, with the baton being passed, because it's not really passed. It's like they've broken a baton in half and gone, here you go, guys. Here are your own batons. We're gonna follow that one, but you're still over here. Whatever. Along with not getting a full episode of Ncuti's Doctor after regeneration, right after, it really retcons the healing journey that we could have seen with Ncuti's Doctor. Since the 14th Doctor's main storyline, I guess, if we can call it a storyline, it wasn't a character arc, it wasn't anything. Since his main thing was healing from all this past trauma, it would have made sense if Ncuti's Doctor was working through more, and if we had more time to develop that kind of I don't know, the kind of working through all this trauma. Instead, it's really pushed to the side and we're not given time to see him deal with everything. He's literally splitting himself and being like, I don't have time to deal with this trauma right now, so you're gonna go sit in a garden and I'm gonna still be, doing stuff. David Tennant returning to the show was an odd thing to do. I understand it from a writing / marketing, really more of a marketing standpoint, because yes, ratings did plummet during the last few seasons, and That is not Jodie Whittaker's fault. That is the fault of bad writing. And I'm not gonna get into that like in depth. There is another YouTuber who did like, I think it was like 4 hours. He did like a 4-hour video essay of it. It's incredible and highly recommend. I'll leave a link to that down in the description. It's chef's kiss. Love it. It's beautiful. Yes, ratings did drop during that time, and this, I feel, did instill a certain amount of fear in the networks and like the BBC in general and like the showrunners of Doctor Who, and this kind of made them want to have this safety net of having David Tennant like on standby, that they could bring him back like at any point. If you want a new story with David Tennant as the Doctor and Catherine Tate as Donna, we can do that, because they're just chilling on Earth. Just have them go do stuff. They're already doing stuff. So just bring them back for a little bit and ta-da, you've got a new Doctor and Donna story. David Tennant has returned other times. He returned for the 50th anniversary, and might be a controversial opinion, but I really like the 50th anniversary more than the 60th. And that's because the plotline in the 50th really ties into the storylines of the greater story. And bringing David Tennant back as the 10th Doctor at like a different time in his run, really, it doesn't undermine the emotional points of his run. It comes back and kind of punches you in the gut about like all the stuff that happened in his run with bringing back Billie Piper and referencing the like I don't want to go speech. And that's something that I really think the 60th anniversary got like wrong. I think they were really like trying to make fans feel warm and fuzzy, and I'm like, no. Torture. I want to feel the pain. I want to feel all the pain. Bringing David Tennant back does pull in fans out of nostalgia, but what else does it do? It doesn't do anything else. He's not here for like any big narrative reason. Now, let's talk about backtracking. The specials were a lot of backtracking. I absolutely love David Tennant. Brilliant actor, brilliant human. Love him. But please, for the love of God, stop bringing him back to Doctor Who. You need to stop. It's too much. I can go see him in other things. He's in Good Omens. I got my fix. It's enough. Bring him back for a reason, not just because you can. Because he will say yes. He will always say yes to Doctor Who, but it doesn't mean he should. Bringing back David Tennant and Catherine Tate completely undermines their emotional endings. Especially David Tennant's. I feel like Catherine Tate, it could have worked. It could have made it work. But bringing back David Tennant, I was excited at first. I was like, okay, cool. I could do something pretty fun with this. But, no. Bringing them back is fan service. And completely, like, erases their endings. I swear, these writers, every single Doctor Who writer, they have writing commitment issues. I'm gonna look at one specific scene in this episode that really proves my point here. And that is the scene, the puppet scene, with the toy maker, where he's going like, Amy Pond. This scene really shows how much, like, the writers don't like killing off major characters. Because it literally, like, lists off all, well, not all companions, because some of them survived. The Chibnall ones, they survived. Good for them. They didn't have any dimension, but that's a different story. And I think the not killing off of companions is often a complaint people have about Stephen Moffat. But Russell T Davies is also guilty of this, because none of the companions from his run have died either. Rose, trapped in a parallel world. Yep, she's alive. Jack, immortal. He's kind of a companion. Let's give him that. Martha, vibing, doing her thing in unit, I think. Donna, alive. And then we go Amy Pond. Yeah, she died of old age. Weeping Angels. Clara, killed by the Raven, but survives in last moment. And Bill, consciousness survives, which is like the most they stretched it. It's like, really? How can we make her survive? Are we killing off our gays? Maybe a little. Let's just retcon it. So as this scene is going on, it's literally like the writers are the Doctor or something, and the toy maker is just like, oh, well, that's all right then. Because it's like, they didn't actually die. Well, that's all right then. Yeah, we don't have to deal with that. It's still traumatic. Writing-wise, none of these characters are allowed to have the big emotional impact. I remember, like, reading or watching, like, videos about Clara, like, her ending, and it's so tragic, and I wish that they just left it at her being killed by the Raven. Like, why? Why did we have to have this whole resurrection, her going off in her own, like, TARDIS? It's so stupid. I'm like, just, I love Clara, but, girl, it would have hit so much harder if it's just like, yeah, the Doctor gets to the Time Lords and they can't do anything. Gotta deal with that now, bud. Sorry. Nothing we can do here. This really, like, leads into the actual cemented arc of the specials as the Doctor's, like, pushing away the trauma of these losses. The Doctor's often confronted with, like, how many people he gets killed as he's, like, traveling throughout the universe and, like, stopping all these bad guys. The main examples being, I think it's Journey's End, or, like, one of the last episodes of season 4, where Davros gives his, like, whole spiel about, like, all the people he gets killed. And then in season 6, A Good Man Goes to War, River gives a similar speech. So we have had these kind of discussions before, but in this case, we're not really given the time to deal with it, and the Doctor doesn't really seem to, like, have the emotional capacity at the moment. Like, he's seriously brushing everything under the rug, and I'm like, bro, come on. You've done this before. Like, both of the other times, when we had 10 being confronted, he was like, bro was like, disassociating. He was like, off in his own world. Like, I need to check out for a minute. And 11 was losing his shit. Like, he was angry. And, I don't know, I think it would have been really interesting in this case, because 14, in, like, both of the other episodes, I think was a very emotional incarnation. In this episode, I don't know where all that emotion went. He was just kind of a dick. I'm so annoyed with how he treated Shelley, but that's a whole other point, and I'm so mad about it. I think it would have been really interesting if, like, we actually had, like, a meltdown or something, kind of like what we had in Wild Blue Yonder, where he, like, kind of fought with a wall. I'm like, I want something. Like, give me something. Don't just deflect. I'm like, because Donna's, like, asking questions. But it's like, whereas it feels too much like 10. Like, in that situation, it felt too much like the 10th Doctor. And I'm like, aren't you supposed to be 14 right now? Just saying. Just an idea. And all of this is shown as the reason why 14 has to fix himself. So that 15 can be, like, all happy and chill and don't know what he's like, but he seems cool. However, throughout the episodes, we don't get a sense of how these losses are affecting him. We don't get any mention of, like, the companions from the Chibnall era, and we don't get a mention of, like, a lot of the other companions. Just say we don't get a mention of Martha. Where? Why? Why? Explain yourself. Where's Martha? We were at unit. She could have been there. Just saying. It's not you. Yeah, it's not really, like, shown as an arc. I feel like that's gonna be like my little catchphrase for a while, that I'm like, where's the arc? Show me. I want it. The anniversary specials are fan service. There's no real way around it. The 50th anniversary is the only one that was recorded since the revival in 2005, from what I gather. If not, I missed something really big. And the 50th introduced some new lore, which I really like. It introduced the idea that Gallifrey, the Doctor's homeworld, might still be out there in time and space. So we got that new mystery. In the case of the 60th, you tell me. We got a lot of seeds, but not a lot of plants. We don't got anything that can, like, propel things forward. We got no, like, a narrative moving into Shooty. And bringing back characters. Doing that is not always a bad thing. But the thing is, it needs to play into the narrative. Come on. Get with the program. And that justifies bringing them back. Because why else are they here if not to serve the plot? The purpose of this storyline seems to be that the 14th Doctor is a scapegoat for trauma. Which I don't like. Because why? Why not deal with the trauma in an actual storyline? Why not actually deal with it? I know it's a kid's show, but this is a kid's show that started its revival with a war-torn doctor who was seriously messed up. And you're saying you can't deal with the trauma of losing, like, everybody he's ever cared about again? I call bullshit. And the whole bi-generation really leaves a gap between, like, where we have the 14th Doctor. We have him, like, chilling with Donna and the fam, having a good time, recovering from the trauma. And then we have Shooty's Doctor, who's all, like, bubbly and fun, and, like, well-adjusted, apparently. We don't get to see any of the character progression. There's, like, a giant gap in the middle, where it's like, okay, apparently 14 did all this emotional work, but we're not gonna see it. I would have appreciated it more, like, if the 14th Doctor, like, came to that realization or something, and then he regenerated into Shooty's Doctor, and then we had, like, a whole arc with Shooty, like, coming to terms with all this stuff, and, like, recovering from the trauma, and growing as a person, and all that, and instead of just going, like, whew, nope, sweep it under the rug, not gonna deal with that, I dealt with that in the past. It's like, I don't know, we're not getting to see it. There are so many unresolved things from these specials, and I really hope that they address them in Shooty's run. I am kind of scared that they won't, but I'm going to give you guys the list of all of the, like, threads that have been left untied by these specials. So we have, first off, we have the Meep saying, wait till I tell the boss. We have the whole Mavity shenanigans. Didn't lead anywhere. Is that going to be a thing in the next season? That everybody's saying Mavity instead of Gravity? They didn't really address the whole salt thing. And if that really was the way the Toymaker got into their universe, dunno. It was a throwaway line and they didn't really address it. Was there actually a reason for the TARDIS playing Wild Blue Yonder? Or is that just funsies for title reasons? And we also have the Toymaker talking about his legions, but that one's probably gonna get addressed. I'm like, of all the ones to address, I hope that's the one. And that's just to name a few. Those are the ones that, like, come up off the top of my head. There's so many seeds that they're planting. I'm like, how are you gonna address every single one of these? There's, like, 5 to 7, like, seeds being planted. Why so many? Why? Focus on one, please. Stop. Like, I feel like it's not red herrings, but it feels like red herrings. Like, red herrings of what the plot's gonna be. They're writing red herrings. So, the emotional range and emotional impact of your story is very, very important. When you are writing your stories, remember, it's okay if your readers hate you. It's okay to give your audience trauma, okay? It's fine. They may hate you, but it's better than backtracking. Okay? That's all from me for this video. And I will be back with more Doctor Who content next week. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe for more fandom and writing content. Leave a comment down below if there's any fandom stuff you want me to talk about, if you have any writing stuff you want me to talk about. I will see you guys next week with a new video. Bye! Allons-y!